In the spring of a modest year during the Zhou Dynasty, the village of Zhou rested like a quiet whisper beneath the sprawling mountains of the state of Lu. It was a humble place, its people bound by simplicity and the rhythms of agrarian life. Amidst the rolling fields and the steady hum of village life, a child named Yan Zhengzai was born. Her family was not wealthy, but they were known for their integrity, a trait that would come to define Yan's entire existence. Yan's father, Yan Zheng, was a man of principle, a minor scholar by trade. He spent his evenings poring over ancient texts by the flickering light of a small oil lamp. He believed that knowledge was the greatest inheritance a parent could pass down to a child. Though societal norms of the time discouraged educating daughters, Yan Zheng saw potential in his youngest child. He often spoke to her about the virtues of honesty, diligence, and humility, planting seeds of wisdom in her young mind. From a young age, Yan Zhengzai displayed a precocious sense of curiosity. She followed her father to the village market, asking questions about the prices of grains, the politics of the day, and even the ethical dilemmas her father encountered in his dealings with others. "Why does the merchant cheat his customers if he already has enough?" she once asked, her eyes wide with innocence. Yan Zheng smiled, touched by her sincerity. "Because the heart of man is often clouded by desire," he replied. "But it is our duty to clear that cloud with wisdom and virtue." As she grew older, Yan became known for her sharp mind and compassionate spirit. She helped her mother tend the family's small garden and often shared the vegetables they grew with neighbors in need. Her generosity earned her the affection of the villagers, but it was her unwavering sense of justice that left the deepest impression. When she witnessed a farmer being unfairly taxed by a local magistrate, she boldly confronted the official, arguing that the man's burdens were already too heavy. Though her plea fell on deaf ears, her courage became the talk of the village. By the time Yan reached adolescence, she was a striking young woman, her beauty matched only by her intellect. Her family, though proud, worried for her future. In a society where a woman's worth was often measured by her ability to marry well, Yan's independent spirit made her an unconventional prospect. Many suitors admired her but hesitated to approach her, intimidated by her reputation for challenging societal norms. One day, fate intervened in the form of Shu Liang He, a retired military officer who had served the state of Lu with distinction. At nearly 60 years of age, Shu Liang He was a man of great discipline and moral integrity. He had seen the devastation of war and the fragility of human life, experiences that had left him deeply reflective. Despite his accomplishments, his personal life had been marked by tragedy. His previous wife had passed away, and his children had died young, leaving him without an heir. When Shu Liang He first met Yan Zhengzai, he was struck by her poise and determination. Though their age difference was significant, he saw in her the qualities of a partner who could help him fulfill his dream of raising a family rooted in virtue. He approached her family with a marriage proposal, emphasizing not wealth or status but a shared commitment to moral principles. Yan's family was initially hesitant. The match was unconventional, and they worried about the challenges Yan might face as the wife of an older man. Yet Yan herself saw something in Shu Liang He that resonated deeply with her own values. She admired his wisdom, his strength, and his unwavering dedication to the greater good. After much contemplation, she agreed to the union, not out of obligation but out of a genuine belief in their shared purpose. Their marriage was a quiet affair, marked by simplicity and sincerity rather than grandeur. Yan Zhengzai entered Shu Liang He's household with a sense of resolve, determined to build a life that reflected their mutual ideals. She managed the household with efficiency and grace, earning the respect of her husband's retainers and the admiration of the local community. It was not long before their union bore fruit. Yan gave birth to a son, a moment of profound joy for both parents. They named him Xiao, a name that carried the weight of their hopes and dreams. Shu Liang He, who had longed for an heir to carry on his legacy, was overjoyed. Yet it was Yan who took the lead in nurturing the child. her approach to motherhood shaped by her own upbringing. From the moment he could speak, Confucius became the center of Yan's world. She believed that the early years of a child's life were the most crucial for shaping character, and she devoted herself entirely to his upbringing. She taught him not only to read and write, but also to observe the world around him, to question injustice, and to value truth above all else. One day, as she worked in the garden with Confucius at her side, he asked her why some plants grew tall while others withered. Yan smiled and said, "The soil and the sun may be the same, but each seed must find its own strength to grow. You, too, must find your strength and use it to bring light to others." It was this kind of wisdom, simple yet profound, that defined Yan Zhengzai's approach to parenting. She saw in her son not just a child but a vessel for the values she held dear. She believed that he was destined for greatness, not in the worldly sense of power or wealth, but in the moral sense of making a difference in the lives of others. Though their life was far from easy, Shu Liang He's health began to decline as Confucius grew older. Yan faced every challenge with resilience. She managed the household finances with care, ensuring that her son had access to books and teachers despite their limited means. She often stayed up late into the night, sewing or weaving to earn extra money, her hands calloused but her spirit unbroken. In the evenings, she would sit by the fire with Confucius, telling him stories from ancient texts and sharing lessons from her own life. She spoke of the importance of humility, the dangers of greed, and the power of compassion. These stories, filled with moral clarity and emotional depth, became the foundation of Confucius's early education. As her husband's health worsened, Yan took on an even greater burden. She cared for Shu Liang He with unwavering devotion, balancing her duties as a wife, mother, and provider when he passed away, leaving her a widow with a young son to raise. Yan faced her greatest challenge yet, but she did not falter. Instead, she resolved to honor her husband's memory by ensuring that their son would grow up to embody the virtues they had both cherished. She often told Confucius, "Your father was a man of great strength, not because he wielded a sword but because he upheld what was right. You must do the same, for strength of character is the greatest legacy." In the quiet village of Zhou, life moved on, but Yan Zhengzai's determination became a source of inspiration for all who knew her. She was no longer just the widow of Shu Liang He or the mother of Confucius. She was a symbol of resilience, a woman who had turned her own hardships into opportunities to cultivate wisdom and virtue. As the years passed, Yan continued to guide her son with the same unwavering commitment. She saw in him the potential to become not just a good man but a great one, a leader who could bring light to a world overshadowed by chaos and corruption. And though she could not have known the full extent of the impact he would one day have, she believed in him with every fiber of her being. This belief, this unshakable faith in the power of virtue and the potential of her child, became the foundation upon which Confucius would build his legacy, a legacy that would echo through the ages, shaped in no small part by the quiet strength and enduring wisdom of his mother, Yan Zhengzai. When Shu Liang He passed away, the household fell silent, as if the walls themselves mourned his absence. He had been a pillar of strength, a man who balanced the strict discipline of a soldier with the compassion of a father. His death left a void that seemed impossible to fill. Yan Zhengzai, now widowed, stood at the edge of a precipice, with her young son Confucius clinging to her side. She was barely in her 20s, and the weight of single parenthood bore down on her like the heavy stones of Zhou's ancient walls. The customs of the time dictated that widows remarry, particularly those as young and beautiful as Yan. Her relatives and neighbors advised her to find a new husband, not only for her own security but also for the well-being of her son. "A woman alone cannot raise a boy in this world," an elderly aunt told her. But Yan's resolve was unshakable. "I will not place my child in the hands of another," she replied. "His future is my responsibility, and I will see it through." Yan's refusal to remarry was not just an act of defiance against societal norms. It was a testament to her unyielding dedication to her son. She believed deeply in Kong Qiu's potential and saw herself as the sole guardian of his moral and intellectual development, though she understood the challenges that lay ahead. She embraced them with the quiet strength that had always defined her character. With Shu Liang He gone, the family's modest income vanished. His small pension as a retired military officer had been their primary source of stability. And without it, Yan and her son faced dire financial straits. Their once orderly household fell into disrepair, and the servants who had once assisted with daily tasks were dismissed. Yan sold most of her possessions, keeping only a few essential items and the books her late husband had treasured. To make ends meet, Yan took on any work she could find. She mended clothes for neighbors, harvested crops during planting season, and even wove baskets late into the night. Her hands, once smooth and delicate, became rough and calloused from labor, yet she never complained. To her, every task was a step toward securing a future for her son. A mother's love, she often told herself, is like the soil beneath the roots of a tree. It must endure all seasons, for the tree to grow tall. Gong Qi, though only a boy, noticed his mother's sacrifices. One evening, as Yan sat weaving by the dim light of an oil lamp, he approached her with wide, solemn eyes. "Mother," he asked, "why do you work so hard? Why not rest?" Yan paused, setting aside her work. "Because the path to wisdom is not paved with comfort," she said gently. "If I rest now, how will we find the light we seek?" It was in these moments that Yan instilled in her son the values of perseverance and self-discipline. She taught him that hardship was not a curse but an opportunity to grow stronger. When he struggled to memorize passages from the ancient texts she had salvaged from his father's collection, she encouraged him with stories of great figures who had overcome adversity. "Even the tallest mountains are climbed one step at a time," she would say. Despite their financial struggles, Yan was determined to provide Kong Qiu with an education. She sought out scholars in the village, offering her services in exchange for lessons for her son. Some scoffed at her audacity. After all, education was considered a luxury for boys from wealthy families. But Yan's persistence won them over, and soon Kong Qiu was studying under the guidance of learned men. Yan's role in her son's education extended beyond arranging lessons. She became his first and most enduring teacher, weaving moral lessons into their daily lives. When a neighbor falsely accused her of stealing firewood, Yan chose not to retaliate. Instead, she used the incident as a teaching moment for Kong Qiu. "The truth will always reveal itself," she told him, "but our integrity must remain steadfast, no matter what others say." One particularly harsh winter, Yan faced a heartbreaking choice. She had saved enough money to buy either a thick coat for herself or a set of scrolls that would advance Kong Qiu's studies. Without hesitation, she chose the scrolls, enduring the biting cold with only a thin shawl to protect her. When her son asked why she had made such a sacrifice, she replied, "Knowledge will keep you warm long after the winter has passed." Yan's selflessness left a profound impact on Kong Qiu. He began to see her not just as a mother, but as a figure of immense moral strength. Her actions, more than her words, became the foundation of his understanding of virtue. In later years, he would reflect on her sacrifices as the cornerstone of his own philosophy, which emphasized the importance of family, duty, and moral integrity. As Kong Qiu grew older, Yan faced increasing scrutiny from the community. Some criticized her decision to remain unmarried, accusing her of pride or recklessness. Others questioned her ability to raise a boy without a father figure. Yan endured their judgments with grace, focusing instead on her son's development. She believed that actions spoke louder than words, and she let her resilience and dedication be her response to their doubts. One day, a village elder approached Yan with a stern expression. "You place too much faith in the boy," he said. "What if he grows up to disappoint you?" Yan met his gaze calmly. "A seed planted with care and watered with love will grow strong," she replied. Even if it faces storms, its roots will hold firm. Her unwavering belief in Kong Qiu's potential became a source of both inspiration and pressure for the boy. He felt a deep sense of responsibility to honor his mother's sacrifices and to live up to her expectations. Yet Yan was careful not to burden him with unrealistic demands. She reminded him often that success was not measured by wealth or status, but by the impact one had on the lives of others. When Kong Qiu was about 10 years old, a dispute arose in the village over the allocation of water from a nearby stream. The farmers, unable to reach an agreement, turned to the village elders for guidance. However, the elders themselves became embroiled in the argument, each favoring the interests of their own kin. Watching the commotion, young Kong Qiu quietly approached the gathering. With a calm voice, he proposed a solution that balanced fairness with practicality. The farmers, initially skeptical, found themselves agreeing with his reasoning. The elders, though reluctant to admit it, were impressed by the boy's clarity of thought. When Yan heard of her son's involvement, she did not praise him outright, but instead used the incident as an opportunity for reflection. "You have shown wisdom beyond your years," she told him. "But remember, true wisdom lies not in being heard, but in serving others with humility." As the years passed, Yan continued to devote herself entirely to her son's upbringing. She shielded him from the harshest realities of their struggles, while teaching him to face challenges with courage and integrity. She encouraged his curiosity, nurtured his compassion, and guided him toward an understanding of the world that emphasized harmony and justice. In the quiet hours of the evening, as they sat together by the flickering light of their single oil lamp, Yan would share stories of great heroes and virtuous leaders. She spoke of their sacrifices, their triumphs, and the principles that guided their actions. "The greatest legacy," she often said, "is not the wealth we leave behind, but the values we pass on to those who come after us." Yan Zhengzai's unwavering resolve and boundless love shaped every aspect of Kong Qiu's character, though she could not have foreseen the extent of his future influence. She believed deeply in his potential to bring light to a world shrouded in darkness. And so, she pressed on, her spirit unbroken, her faith unwavering, determined to see her son rise above the challenges of their time and become a beacon of virtue for generations to come. By the time Kong Qiu, later known as Confucius, entered adolescence, life in the village of Zhou had become more stable, though not without its challenges. The years of Yan Zhengzai's tireless labor and unwavering dedication had borne fruit. Despite their humble means, Confucius had gained a reputation as an exceptionally bright and thoughtful boy. His sharp mind and innate curiosity drew the attention of local scholars, many of whom were impressed by the depth of his questions and the maturity of his insights. But behind his budding intellect was the unrelenting guidance of Yan Zhengzai, whose influence permeated every aspect of his upbringing. Yan believed that true wisdom came not only from studying texts but also from understanding people and the world around them. She encouraged Confucius to observe the lives of their neighbors, to listen to their stories, and to learn from their struggles. "Wisdom begins with empathy," she told him one evening as they shared a modest meal of millet porridge. "To understand the hearts of others is to understand the world itself. Never forget that the greatest lessons are not always written in books, they are lived." One summer, a drought struck the region, leaving the fields barren and the villagers desperate. Many families fled to neighboring states in search of better fortunes. But Yan Zhengzai refused to leave. "Our roots are here," she said firmly. "The soil may be dry today, but it will rain again. We must endure, just as the earth endures." During this time, Yan taught Confucius the value of resourcefulness and perseverance. She showed him how to gather wild herbs to supplement their meager diet and how to make repairs to their home using discarded materials. Though their hardships were great, Yan never allowed despair to take hold. Instead, she turned every challenge into an opportunity for growth. One day, Confucius watched as his mother patched a torn robe with practiced efficiency. "Why do you always work so hard, Mother?" he asked. his voice tinged with concern. Yan paused and looked at him with a soft smile. "Because every thread I sew is a thread of hope for your future," she replied. "One day, you will understand that even the smallest actions can weave the fabric of greatness." It was during this period that Confucius began to develop his deep appreciation for the virtues of diligence and humility. He saw how his mother carried herself with grace despite their struggles, and how she treated even the most menial tasks with care and reverence. These lessons stayed with him, forming the foundation of his belief in the importance of discipline and self-cultivation. As Confucius grew older, Yan Zhengzai sought to expand his horizons by introducing him to learned men in the surrounding villages. She bartered her labor in exchange for his lessons, often walking great distances to arrange meetings with scholars who could further his education. One such scholar, a retired official named Master Zhang, became an important mentor to Confucius, known for his extensive knowledge of history and governance. Master Zhang saw potential in the young boy and agreed to take him on as a student. Under his tutelage, Confucius delved into the teachings of the Zhou Dynasty's ancient texts, learning about the principles of ritual, governance, and moral philosophy. Master Zhang quickly recognized that Confucius's intellect was matched by his sense of justice and compassion. One day, during a lesson on the importance of filial piety, Confucius spoke up. "If a ruler demands obedience but lacks virtue, should the people still follow him?" he asked. The question startled Master Zhang, who paused before replying. "A wise question," he said. "Tell me, what do you think?" Confucius considered his answer carefully, drawing on the lessons his mother had taught him. "A ruler's authority comes from their ability to care for their people," he said. "Without virtue, their commands are empty, and their power is hollow." When Confucius recounted this exchange to his mother later that evening, Yan Zhengzai listened with quiet pride. "You have learned well," she said. "But remember, wisdom is not just in what you say, it is in how you live. Let your actions reflect your words, and others will see the truth in you." By the time Confucius reached his mid-teens, his reputation for fairness and insight began to spread beyond their small village. One day, a dispute arose between two neighboring families over the ownership of a plot of land. The argument escalated, with neither side willing to compromise. The village elders, unable to mediate effectively, called upon Confucius for help. Though he was still a boy, Confucius approached the matter with the seriousness of a seasoned diplomat. He listened carefully to both sides, asking questions to uncover the root of the conflict. Then, drawing on the principles of fairness his mother had instilled in him, he proposed a solution that allowed both families to share the land while ensuring its resources were used efficiently. The elders were astonished by his wisdom, and the families accepted his proposal with gratitude. Word of the young mediator's abilities spread, and many began to look to him for guidance on matters of justice and morality. When Yan Zhengzai heard of her son's involvement, she offered her usual measured praise. "You have done well to bring peace to our neighbors," she said. "But remember, your duty is not to seek recognition. Let your heart remain humble, and let your actions speak for themselves." As Confucius began to attract followers and admirers, Yan Zhengzai remained in the background, content to let her son take center stage. Yet her influence was unmistakable. She continued to guide him with her wisdom, offering counsel when he faced difficult decisions and reminding him of the values that had shaped their lives. One evening, as they sat together beneath the stars, Confucius turned to his mother with a question that had been weighing on his mind. "Mother," he said, "do you think I will ever make a difference in this world?" Yan Zhengzai looked at him with a mixture of tenderness and conviction. "You already have," she said. "Every life you touch, every injustice you mend, is a step toward a better world. Do not measure your worth by the size of your audience or the grandeur of your achievements. Measure it by the strength of your character and the kindness in your heart." These words became a guiding principle for Confucius, who would go on to dedicate his life to teaching and promoting the virtues his mother had so carefully nurtured in him. Though he would one day be remembered as a great philosopher and moral leader, he never forgot the quiet strength and unwavering love of the woman who had shaped his journey. In every lesson he taught, in every principle he upheld, there was a trace of Yan Zhengzai's wisdom, a legacy that would echo through the ages, carried forward by the man she had raised to be a beacon of light in a troubled world. As Confucius entered adulthood, the teachings of his mother, Yan Zhengzai, formed the bedrock of his philosophy. His growing renown as a teacher and thinker brought him before nobles and commoners alike. Yet he remained deeply connected to the values instilled in him during his humble upbringing. For every speech he delivered, every student he inspired, and every reform he proposed, there was an echo of his mother's quiet wisdom. By this time, Yan Zhengzai had grown older, her once boundless energy now tempered by age. Though her body had begun to tire, her mind remained sharp, and her influence over her son endured. Confucius, who traveled frequently to teach and advise, always returned to her side whenever possible, seeking her counsel and drawing strength from her presence. One evening, as the two sat by the hearth of their modest home, Confucius shared a concern that had troubled him for years. "Mother," he said, "I see so much discord in the world. Rulers abuse their power, the people suffer, and justice feels like a distant dream. Do you think my efforts can truly make a difference?" Yan Zhengzai, now frail but still possessing the same resolute spirit, reached out and placed her hand on his. "The world's discord is not yours to solve alone," she said gently, "but every life you touch, every soul you guide, creates ripples that spread far beyond what you can see. Your task is not to conquer the world's chaos, but to bring order and virtue to your corner of it. From there, others will carry the light forward." Her words comforted Confucius, reminding him of the values she had imparted throughout his life: patience, humility, and an unwavering commitment to moral principles. These values would later become the cornerstone of his teachings, influencing generations of students who sought wisdom in his words. As Yan Zhengzai's health declined, Confucius took great care to ensure her comfort. Despite his growing responsibilities, he made time to sit with her, sharing stories of his travels and the people he had met. She listened with quiet pride, knowing that her sacrifices had not been in vain. One day, as the autumn leaves fell in golden cascades around their home, Yan Zhengzai called her son to her bedside. "Kong Qiu," she said, her voice soft but steady, "My time here is nearing its end, but know this, my greatest joy has been watching you grow into the man you are today. You have carried the values of our family with honor, and through you, those values will live on." Confucius knelt beside her, tears streaming down his face. "Mother," he said, "everything I am, everything I will ever be, is because of you. Your love and wisdom have been my guiding light." Yan Zhengzai smiled, her gaze filled with a serenity that seemed to transcend the moment. "Then I have fulfilled my purpose," she said. "Carry forward what we have built together. Teach others not only through your words but through your actions. Let your life be a testament to the values we hold dear." Not long after, Yan Zhengzai passed away peacefully, surrounded by the love of her son and the memories of a life devoted to virtue and resilience. The loss of his mother marked a profound turning point in Confucius's life. Though he mourned deeply, he also found renewed purpose in honoring her memory. He often spoke of her as his first and greatest teacher, recounting the lessons she had taught him and the sacrifices she had made. In his teachings, the influence of Yan Zhengzai was unmistakable. Her emphasis on humility, integrity, and compassion became central tenets of his philosophy, resonating through his concepts of benevolence, Li, ritual propriety, and Xiao, filial piety. Confucius's insistence on the importance of family and the moral examples set by parents reflected the profound impact of his mother's guidance. As his fame grew, Confucius continued to pay tribute to Yan Zhengzai, often citing her as the source of his understanding of virtue. He described her as a woman of extraordinary strength and wisdom, whose unwavering belief in the power of moral character had shaped not only his life but also the lives of those he taught. In the years that followed, Confucius's teachings spread across China, influencing the development of governance, education, and culture. Yet behind the legacy of the great philosopher was the quiet strength of a mother who had devoted her life to nurturing the virtues that would define her son's work. The story of Yan Zhengzai is a testament to the enduring power of love, sacrifice, and resilience, though her name is often overshadowed by her son's accomplishments. Her influence is deeply woven into the fabric of his legacy. She exemplified the belief that greatness is not always born of grand gestures but often emerges from the quiet, steady dedication of those who nurture it. In every lesson Confucius taught, in every principle he upheld, there was a trace of Yan Zhengzai's wisdom, a legacy that lives on not only in the annals of history but in the hearts of those who continue to seek guidance in the teachings of her son. Through her unwavering resolve and boundless love, Yan Zhengzai not only shaped the life of Confucius but also illuminated the path for countless others, proving that the influence of a single life, lived with purpose and integrity, can resonate across the ages.